So we're going to get started. Tonight's session is all talking about club visioning and or strategic planning for your club. My name is John Channon. I'm a member of the White Bear Lake Rotary Club in District 5960, and I am the vision facilitation lead elect, I guess, for the district. So I'm going to be taking over the vision facilitation lead for the district this coming Rotary year. Look forward to working with another number of you. So let's talk a little bit about, what is club visioning, and this is focused primarily on club visioning, but strategic planning, which we use in some of our districts, is very, very similar, at least with respect to the outcomes. And club visioning, it's a structured process in which up to 20 members of your club get to participate in the process. And they spend a lot of time together formulating a 3-year vision or strategic plan. And what it does is it basically talks about, who your club is in the future, what are the different priorities that we have and that we're going to keep in front of us as a club, and then how are we keeping our members engaged, or how are we engaging members, or even new members and community members. This is facilitated by other Rotarians, and the Rotarians are trained facilitators in these processes. And you can do this either virtually or in person. Virtually, it's about a 3-step process. In person, it's a 2-step process with one big full meeting. And so it's really set to help your club set up for the future and kind of develop that 3-year plan. Now, the question I often get asked is, why should we do this? Why should we invest all this time in creating a club vision or strategic plan for our club? And this data that I'm going to share with you is from District 5960. We've been tracking metrics for quite a while, and it just goes to show that clubs that participate in club visioning have more engaged members and show membership growth, which results in more involvement at the district level and more giving to the Rotary Foundation. Now, the 2 charts on the screen are comparing clubs that have visioned within the past 5 years, so at our district, with clubs that either have not visioned within the last 5 years or never visioned at all. And you can see there's a big difference in terms of the growth factors there. So clubs that work through the club visioning create consensus for a shared direction. They create consistency for decision making, continuity of leadership, and have improved communications within the club and with the community. The clubs are 4 times more likely to grow their membership, 5 to 10 times more likely to receive district recognition, and experience 2 to 3 times more giving per member to the Rotary Foundation. And in addition to that, it's actually a really fun process to go through. A lot of clubs really enjoy going through the process. So those are the primary reasons why you would want to invest this time and this effort into doing this. Now, what we've got set up for you today is we're going to do a little bit of a panel discussion. And I've got a number of panelists here, one person from each one of our districts who I thought it would be worthwhile to share some real experiences, right? Have people tell their stories of their club's experience with club visioning or strategic planning and the impact that it's had on their club and the value that it's brought forward. Each panelist is going to share for about 5 minutes. If you have a question while that panelist is talking or they trigger something, just go ahead and type that question in the chat, because once each of the panelists has gone through sharing their story, we're going to allow some time for you to ask Q&A, and that will be done through the chat box. So I encourage you to do that. And like I said, you can just put those in at any time as we're going through this process. So our panelists today from District 5580 is past District Governor Blaine Johnson of the Rotary Club of Bismarck, North Dakota. He's going to start us off, followed by District 5950, District Governor-elect Lloyd Campbell with the Rotary Club of Glenwood. District 5960 is represented by President-elect, so one of your fellow folks participating here in NC Pets, Rick Heideck with the Rotary Club of Stillwater Sunrise. District 5970 is represented by President Connie Bliley with the Rotary Club of Mason City Noon in Iowa. And District 6000 is represented by District Governor nominee designate Dave Cook of the Rotary Club of Boone, Iowa. So they're going to be your panelists today. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to pull those panelists up onto the screen with me, hopefully. And Blaine, you're going to start us off.
Excellent. Thanks, John. And welcome to all of our participants this evening. It's great to be here with you, although not in person. My first experience with club visioning was 16 years ago, and I was actually in your shoes. I was a president-elect, and as some of you probably are, pretty new to Rotary. I'd been a member for a year and a half, and 28 years of age in a club that was probably of average age, or approximately 60 years old. So one of the, I think, great things about club visioning isn't necessarily a club benefit, but it's a personal benefit for each one of you. Because what club visioning allowed me to do as a president-elect was to establish the framework for what was going to happen in my year as president. It provided a path, a map, identifying where the club wanted to go and what the club wanted to achieve. And it was very easy then for me as a president-elect to plan for that year. Also, the great thing about club visioning is that it provides a consensus amongst all of the club members, so that if you want to try and experiment with something new, maybe something that the club's not accustomed to venture into that scary word of change, you have consensus amongst the club members already because of the plan that was created out of the visioning process itself. So as a personal benefit, that is, I think, number one. The other club benefit that I noticed out of that same visioning session is that I was a member of a club that had a very fond relationship with Rotary Youth Exchange. And every public event that they would host, they would bring out the 30, 40 flags from across the world, identifying each one of the youth exchange students that they'd hosted over the years. And if you were to talk to any of the members about youth exchange, they would kind of light up, and they would recall fondly youth exchange as if they were still doing it. But the truth of the matter is that youth exchange wasn't something that they had participated in almost 15 years. So as a result of club visioning, one of the things that was really drawn out and discovered was that fondness for youth exchange and for a program that they weren't currently participating in. They were allowed to identify some of the primary characteristics of the club and identify what they were passionate about. And as a result of club visioning, brought youth exchange back and really revitalized and re-engaged a lot of the members through that process. I'll give you one more example, more of a current example of one of the benefits of club visioning. In my current club, we had traditionally hosted a foundation dinner in November, more of an educational event for Rotarians to explain and educate them about the Rotary Foundation. As a part of club visioning, we took that event and identified an opportunity to really change that and rework that current program into something that was more identifiable and really focused more on foundation giving rather than just merely educational. So as a result, the prior years of experience and foundation giving up to that point, after pre-visioning, was roughly about $3,000 a year annual giving. for the club. Year one, after club visioning and revitalizing that program and using foundation or Paul Harris points to kind of encourage donations, that number jumped to 12,000. So 4 times as much giving, just by willing to take a look at something you're already doing and asking, how can we make it better? How can we be more effective? How can we be more relevant? Year two, it went to 15,000. Year three, it was 18,000. So consistent growth just by taking the opportunity to sit down and say, okay, what are we doing and how can we improve on what we're doing and where are we going to make it better and leave room for more engagement amongst our members. So just to wrap everything up and really to hone in on the benefits of club visioning, anytime that you as a leader can sit down with your organization and look at what you're doing and say, how can we make it even better? How can we spend some time identifying where do we go and what do we improve on? And how can we be more relevant both to our communities and to our current members? It's time very well worth spent. And visioning provides you the framework to really accomplish that in an environment that is open to new and creative ideas. Oftentimes ones that are never even thought about. So those are 3 things.
Great, thank you, Blaine. Lloyd?
Okay, I have to make sure I'm not muted. The advantage of going first is that you can get a lot of things out, and that means that the people behind you have to fill in the gaps. Blaine did an excellent job of talking about just how important visioning is. And what I want to do over the next few minutes is explain to you my experience with visioning and why it works so successfully. My experience with vision started just like where you are now as a PE. The interesting thing was we had to make a decision if this was the right thing for us to do and why should we do it. 2 advantages of visioning for us at that particular time. We were a small club, about 25 members. We're in a small town. Glenwood, Minnesota is 2,500 people. But we wanted to grow our organization. And I was, just like Blaine said, I was a new incoming president with little experience with Rotary. So this gave me an opportunity to get together with the members of the club so that we could together write a direction. And that was extremely important because you have to make sure that even though you're president, you want to make sure that your projects go through. And by having projects that everyone agrees upon, it's extremely important. So simply by that fact, we decided to have a vision session. And we had 22 members show up at our vision session for a club that was 25. It went quite well. But the next step was when I was president, how we actually implemented the program. The important part about the implementation is that you have to follow up. You have to keep the goals in front of the members of the club. And I could tell when I was in front of the club a couple of times, when I stood up and said, this is where we are with membership. This is where we are with foundation. Some of them had some tired faces. But at the end of the year, when we talked about achieving our goals, everyone had that sense of pride. So the implementation is extremely important. Now, as district membership chair, which I eventually moved into, I had the opportunity to follow our vision session throughout the districts and some things that really popped up as far as making this a successful operation. Visioning works, no doubt about it, but there are some things you should do pre and post to make sure that it is extremely successful. For us, it was a simple thing of pre-work. You had to know your club. You also had to know your community too. And it also helps too that the 5 core values. So you make sure that you don't go somewhere off the reservation as far as some of the ideas that you might have. Also too, we made sure that we had a manageable timeline to work these projects through 3 years, then again in another 3 years. And we had to make sure that we had someone in charge. You as president can be that person, but there are a lot of things on your plate during this upcoming year. So it's extremely important that you might have maybe a spark plug or someone else that can be in charge to make sure that those programs are actually being implemented. Now, as district governor-elect, which I am now in 94 days, things change again. It's extremely important. The things that I've learned from the visioning session is that it's extremely important that you listen. People who know me they know that I love to talk, but the things that I've learned from visioning is that it's how important it is to listen and make sure that, because Rotary starts from the ground up. So it's extremely important that we listen to our members and implement the programs that they want to implement that's within the framework of Rotary. One of the things that we've noticed too is that when we look at, we do surveys every couple of years of the district. One of the things that is of interest to me is that why people join Rotary. In our district, we noticed that a majority of the people join Rotary for service, local service and international service. But we also have 4 other core values that we need to focus on: fellowship, integrity, leadership, and diversity. Those are some things that for our next 3 years at the club level, we need to look at those things too, to see how we can improve on those things. The most interesting thing or disappointing thing that sort of bothers me a little bit is that when someone decides to join Rotary, you ask, why do they join? And are we delivering that product to them? If we are delivering that product, then we should not see that revolving door. So many people leaving Rotary within the first couple of years. So visioning, I think, is that key to slow up that revolving door, or actually stop it, so that we can increase our membership, increase our foundation, and also affect our public image. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about visioning, and I'll turn it over to the next person.
Thank you, Lloyd. Next up is Rick Heideck.
Great, thanks a lot, John. And I'll agree with what Lloyd was saying. It's easy following people who cover the subject matter really good, because all I have to say is, well, I agree with Blaine and Lloyd, because they covered it really excellent. From my perspective, I just want to kind of step back a little bit. When before I retired as a profession, I worked in quality as a quality manager in a corporation. And so one of the things you learn, especially with regards to continuous improvement and operational excellence, is that you need to revisit. Continuous improvement means revisiting what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and if you're getting the results you're looking for. And this hits home for me, because this is in the 2 clubs I belong to in Rotary. One was 32 people, 32 members, and my current club, Stillwater, is about 52 members. Is that what you find out that all clubs have a culture and dynamics, and every club has fundraising, areas of fundraising, key fundraisers you're doing, areas of service that you're doing, what you're doing around public image, what you're doing around continuous membership growth. And every club is doing that. And the nature of what every club is doing is for any number of reasons. It could be something that a club has been doing for a number of years. It's just the way it's always been in a particular club. It's something you just started several years ago. And where this planning and visioning really comes into play is to get the members of the club together and to ask those tough questions about who are we as a club. And it does start with your vision, your mission as a club. What is your mission as a club, and how that translates from Rotary International as a whole? But what do you want your club to be? What are the dynamics in your community? And if nothing ever changed, if your membership never changed, if your community never changed, theoretically you wouldn't need it, but things are changing, dynamics are happening. And so this is a really important way for a club in certain time intervals to take a hard look at what you're doing as a club, what your mission is as a club is, and what impact you're looking for, and whether or not you're getting the impact that you desire. And I came into this. I did a strategic planning at the previous club. I came into this before just as I was getting nominated as president-elect, and so with this 3-year plan, how we worked this out, that I would be kind of the facilitator of this visioning exercise of the master plan of the projects on this 3-year interval. And so the ending or culmination of all these projects of the 3-year plan happens at the end of my term. And so in my club, we're kind of setting this up that then every 3 years we'll repeat that. And so the president nominee then will take this over from me, will recreate this visioning and carry it on as a 3-year plan. But the importance on that is really to that understanding about it forces you to evaluate what is it we're doing, and is it in line with what we want to be doing in our communities, and are we getting the impact? And it works you through the process very deliberately, and you can set up the projects. We track our projects and how the projects are progressing at our board meetings. And so it's very effective on how we can realize getting these projects done and in getting the effect of that and continue moving on. But it goes back to, as an organization, if we want to understand who we are and why we're doing the things we're doing, it forces you down through that analysis to be able to continuously improve, continuously verify whether or not you're getting the impact that you want to have, and that you're serving the community the way you want to serve. But it begs that question, and it really forces you through a great process to where you can very effectively get to that and have confidence as a club that you're doing that. Once you have that confidence, the other thing is what we've found is it does invigorate the members as you're doing this, and you're coming in and saying, well, maybe we should tweak our fundraiser this way, or maybe we should think about how we do strive. The more we have those discussions in our club, the more vitality we think that we've actually had in our club over the last several years. So we did this in October 2020 virtually, and so we're at the end of our second year of this, and we think we've had really great success. And with that, thanks a lot for the time, and I'll hand this off to the next presenter.
Great, thanks, Rick. Connie, you're up.
Okay, thank you. I am with the Mason City, Iowa Noon Rotary Club, and I will kind of just reiterate what Blaine, Lloyd, and Rick all said about the process in terms of the whys, but I'm going to kind of walk you through. Here's what our club did to kind of really get the strategic planning off the ground. So I took over for our club as president in July. Our board kind of threw out there we should do some strategic planning, and I was all about that because in my career that's what we've done. So how we did our process for our strategic plan is we really kind of started at a little bit of a wide lens view and went back to a basic survey of our members. I wanted to hear from our members what they really felt was important for our club to do and in our community. So we started there, and based on our members' input, then we kind of funneled it down to having a pre-work group with our committee chairs and our board members. And so really had a planning session with those folks that kind of teased out what our strengths were, where our gaps were. And the whole time we did use the priorities that Rotary International had already established, because we wanted to make sure that anything that we did really cascaded up to what Rotary International says. From there, we brought in an outside resource that Rotary helped us identify to help facilitate our strategic planning session. And I will say, I think that was invaluable because it was just somebody that was neutral, objective. We didn't know, they didn't know us. And so they really could kind of help moved through the process and really helped us think about our vision statement and what we wanted to evolve from there. So we had some work groups set up with that. Our next steps were kind of even to funnel it further down. And, you know, this is where it gets a little tough. You got to put some words on a piece of paper. And so you just have to start somewhere. So we put those words on a piece of paper. And let me tell you, people could spend lots of time, whether it's, you know, this word or that word. And so we just kind of kept chopping away and editing and kind of getting through there. And so we kind of funneled it down even further to a smaller work group of about 3 or 4 people then to really do the wordsmithing based on what we wanted to reflect. And from there, we had a finished product that we bounced back to our board members who did some final editing, approved it, and then went back to our whole club to share our strategic plan. I would say that process took us, I know it took us from the time that we talked about having a strategic plan to our finish, it took us about 7 months. So it was a process, but one I think that is very well worth it. How we use our strategic plan today, and it has specific things that are measurable, achievable. There's a target, there are some data numbers in there, and things like to help our membership growth, we have that we expect that every Rotarian would bring 1 prospective member to a meeting per year. That's just one example of kind of specific things that we have to kind of help with that. How we use it in the process today is that once we shared it with our members at large, we now have our board agenda that basically is the strategic plan and kind of updates on where we're at. And then about every 2 to 3 months, we do have it in front of our members in an at-large meeting and talk about the things we do. As presidents this year, I do make references to here's what we're doing, and guess what? That really aligns with our strategic plan. So I have found it the most helpful tool that we've probably done this whole year, just because it's not my agenda, it's not what I want as president, but it really is what our club wants based on 2 things, our community needs and then Rotary International. And so what actions I do, it's just really spelled out, and then it allows a wonderful platform for the incoming president to really operate from to allow continuity. It helps us be accountable with new members. We used it in our new member orientation so they could see what we're doing, and it helps us to have some integrity. So that's kind of the process we used, and I'd be very willing to share any resources that we used in that.
Great, thank you, Connie. Dave.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. So I thought maybe I would start out. My name is Dave Cook. I'm with District 6000. I thought I would start out by giving you just in a nutshell what a visioning process actually looks like. I headed up visioning for District 6000 for about 6 years and was fortunate to work with a lot of clubs in our district. So imagine coming into a session where you've done some pre-work, but you're asking your club members to look out 3 years. In our case, we were actually looking out 5 years. And you asked your club members to imagine what success looks like. If you were unbelievably successful, what would your club look like? What would the outcomes look like? And you do that because you want people to, first of all, envision what success looks like, but also how you're going to get there. So I thought today, another really important piece in this process is the way that you build consensus, which has been mentioned multiple times. I'm going to give you a real world example. So in preparation for the Rotary Club of Boone's centennial, which took place in 2019, we conducted a visioning session in late 2017. And this particular visioning process was focused on something very specific. And that was to what we wanted to do in this club related to the centennial in multiple ways. And one of the things that was really interesting about this process is you could use this for something like a centennial project, but it's just as applicable to working and just looking out 3 years and really asking the question, among your club members, what do we want to be? And how are we going to get there? So as part of this visioning process, we wanted to look at two things. One, what would a centennial project look like for our club and our community? And then we also wanted to look at basically from a membership standpoint, what did our members believe we could become as a club? We had a number of goals when it came to developing centennial projects, but the important thing I really want to hit on here is that the visioning process is not about the nuts and bolts. How are you going to make something happen? It starts with generating ideas from your membership and then finding out where your membership is from a consensus standpoint. Where is there support for different ideas that you can start to build on? This process is not about problem solving. When it comes to how are we going to specifically get something done, that is really the work of committees and groups later on. One of the things that I think is just really important, and I'll talk about this real quickly, is this is these are voting dots. I'm sure you've all seen these before, but this is a critical tool in the process, because this is how, when ideas are generated, you give people dots and they are able to vote. And that is how you quickly start to assess where there is consensus within the club. So let me just summarize for you what happened in this process. First, now looking back 5 years, and we were actually looking out 5 years when we did this process. June 30th will be the anniversary of the 5 years since we completed the process. The Centennial project that we envisioned was to move a steam locomotive, a coal tender, and a passenger car to the edge of town in Boone along Highway 30 to welcome visitors to Boone. It's known as the Welcome Train, and Boone is a railroad community, a railroad town, and we have a lot of people that visit for that very reason. And it's become a landmark along Highway 30 that tourists and visitors alike immediately recognize. Moving this 300,000-pound train was not the biggest outcome that came out of that visioning process. The most pivotal thing to come out was when we all talked about how much we believed our club could grow. And coming out of that process, the consensus was that we could grow 50% in 5 years. And I can tell you that as of today, our club grew 50% in 4 years. And we've grown an additional 20% year to date. And that was because we answered one pivotal question. So when you set a goal as a club president, one of the most important things you want to engage your members on is this: how are we going to make it happen? That's the most fun part in goal setting. What are we going to do as a club to make this a reality? And when we set a goal to grow 50%, what we decided was the only way we were going to get there was to start an after-work satellite club, the second one to be started in District 6000. And that after-work satellite club meets from 5:30 to 6:30, and it allows more women, more young professionals, and more spouses to join our club. A satellite is, in effect, it's the same club, you're just meeting at a different time. And the result of that has been that not only has our club grown, where we're now approaching to doubling the size of our club, but others have now followed in our footsteps. And this District 6000 now has 4 of these after-work satellites, and there's 2 more in the queue. So it's just an example of the value that can come out of this process. And it's one that I'll just say one more thing. These voting dots, I use them not only during the visioning process, but as a president and as a leader in our club, when we have something that we're trying to gain agreement on and consensus, oftentimes we'll put the options up in front of our club. We give everybody one dot, and they get to go up and vote where their passion is, where their what their point of view is. And it's amazing how quickly you can bring people together with this simple little tool. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So now we're going to bring all the panelists back up on the screen here by spotlighting them, and we're going to field some Q&A. So I could ask you if you could please put your Q&A in the chat. That would be great. And Kim, I think you've been monitoring that, so maybe you've got some questions all teed up for us.
I have been. So one of the first questions that came up was, so how does a 3-year plan work when a president's term is only 1 year? And kind of related to that, someone would like to hear panel perspectives on a 3-year versus a 5-year. On its face, 3 years sounds easier to wrap heads around. I've seen 5-year plans disappear and lose steam for all sorts of reasons. So what say you, experts?
So the first one is about continuity and changing presidents every year. So who would like to tackle that one?
But
Rick and then Lloyd.
yeah, I'll address the term on that, and how we did the continuity was that I was the president nominee as part of the visioning process, and so that's how the 3-year kind of fit with ours, and with the continuity is that I became basically the facilitator for those next 3 years, and so that 3-year plan ends when my term ends, and so as we go to kind of refresh that whole process now at the end of my term, then we'll redo the visioning process, pull in the next president nominee, and start the 3-year cycle. So you're not changing it based on a president's term. You're assigning the ownership of the plan and the facilitation of the plan within 3-year increments, which really creates a stability for that. And then they're reporting it to the board through that whole process.
Yeah, very similar to what Rick said. Continuity is a key factor when you're doing any type of long-term planning, both on the district level and also on the club level. On the club level, what we were actually doing was that when we made decisions, it was the next 3 presidents were in the room together, and there was some agreement, so that the process that we started, we had an agreement that process will also continue for the next 3 years until we do a new vision session. And we're also doing that on the district level too, because it's difficult to achieve some projects, especially major projects, within 12 months. Sometimes it takes 36 months. And as far as 36 months versus 5 years, I agree. I prefer the 36 months because sometimes in 5 years, things can go awry, but within a shorter period of time, you can get the feedback, you can track it better, and it also sort of falls in place with our continuity as far as the DG line and also the presidential line on the club level.
Great, thank you, guys.
I think just to build on what Lloyd mentioned, I think that when you're talking about projects of substance, being able to accomplish something in 12 months oftentimes is very difficult. And as a club president-elect, your ability to work across both past presidents and those who will follow in your footsteps is absolutely critical. The other thing that I would mention is when you're conducting a visioning session, having those people in the room, as well as not only just key thought leaders in your club, but a diverse group of members is so important because you want to get a broad sample of your club, if at all possible.
Great, good point.
Yeah, and one thing I would add too is sometimes clubs don't have 3 presidents lined up. So a visioning process can help to initiate a succession plan, to get those next 2 people lined up as well. Another question we have, do district visioning plans help guide clubs in their own visioning process, or are they considered two different initiatives?
All right, who would like to take a stab at that one?
All right, I know we have a DGN and a PDG.
Oh,
Let's
man.
go, guys.
Okay. Yeah, let me take a stab at it. From my perspective, and also, I guess also the district perspective, we're here to support clubs. So, and Rotary is an organization that's from the ground up. So it sort of answers itself. We're here to help the clubs, and we hope that our strategic planning is pretty much in line with what the clubs are doing too. That's one of the reasons that we actually do the surveys so often, so that we know what, or have a pretty good idea of what the clubs want. So like I said, I was going to take a stab at it. So I'm not sure that answers the question, but it got rid of the silence.
I'll try and finish it off, Floyd. You're absolutely right. The role of visioning in a club is really for the members. The role of visioning for a district is really for the club. So they serve two different functions, and oftentimes the strategies involved are focused on different things, but there is some overlap, right? So if clubs are looking at what do we do to improve membership, that will be part of your visioning session. But on the district perspective, district is also concerned about improving membership within its clubs. So what can the district do to support that same goal? So there is overlap. The means in which they accomplish those goals, I think, are different, and the focus is different, and the participants are different, right? So they are distinct functions, but you will see some noticeable overlap just because we're all headed for the same ultimate location.
Cool. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to add that I know we really like to make sure that we're using Rotary's strategic priorities to kind of both guide the club process and then the higher level processes as well. And in that manner, we're getting pretty good consistency. But as Blaine mentioned, you know, the club vision is for the members, and it's for their members and their membership and who they want to become, along with within these guidelines of being a Rotary International member.
So we've had several questions about the process and resources and templates. And so I posted a link in the chat to a strategic planning guide that's available from Rotary International. Blaine posted a link to the RI Vision Facilitation.org. You know, I think both of those processes, while they might be a little different, they both have the same end goal in mind, which you all have talked about in terms of really clubs honing in on what do they want to be in 3 years, what's their identity. And so one question was, it sounds like some have had independent facilitators and others Rotary in-house. Is that correct? And then John, there was also a question about who do I talk to if I'm interested in visioning for my club? And I think you said you were going to be posting contact information for each district.
Yeah, once we finish up with the Q&A, I've got a slide that shows the contacts, and then I've also got a PDF file of all the contacts in each one of the districts that are represented here in this, each one of the 5 districts.
Perfect. So maybe y'all want to address the question about a district facilitator versus an independent facilitator. Connie, when you were talking, did you use an independent facilitator or a district resource?
I'm not exactly sure on the terminology. We did use a resource a district gave us, and this individual is not part of our club per se. And so I thought it was ideal because she certainly had the Rotary understanding, the international goals, the priorities, and had the, you know, understood Rotary, yet didn't know the nuances of our club, which really was, I think, to our advantage, because that helped us kind of move the session along. And you know, once in a while, I mean, our club does really well, but I know that sometimes people can sometimes feel like they're stepping on toes and whatnot, and having a neutral person that really was unknown to our club come and go, I think was just helpful to make the process smooth.
Any other comments on facilitation?
Yeah, and we had a district resources that walked us through the analysis process and the brainstorming, and the thing too is this relationship with the district and RI. It's really critical that in the process that there's the understanding of the principles and the key issues and the key measurables from Rotary International and the district. That has to translate. And so I look at it as kind of, the Rotary International and the district are the what. These are what the priorities are, but they're not going to tell the clubs how to grow and how to accomplish those. And the visioning really crosses that over. But it does seem like, and we were really happy, with our district facilitator, because it kept us in line in terms of the scope of the what, while giving us the leeway to really explore within our club how we as a club were going to take this on and address it.
Yeah, and Kim put a comment in the chat here that they're bringing the district facilitator back 1 year post strategic planning to help with an update. And I think that's a great idea too, especially if a year in there happens to be a pesky global pandemic or something,
Yep, I noticed there's a few folks that are having to drop off. So I just want to let everybody know I did put the contact list into the chat. It's a PDF file, so you can click on it and download it directly from the chat. At the top of that list is a contact for 2 of the zones, Dave Schaefer, who's a member of the International Visioning Facilitator Council. And for people that are outside of the 5 districts, because I think I saw somebody from Arkansas online, you can reach out to Dave Schaefer and he can help you find the right resources in your district. So just wanted to add that.
I think we've handled the questions that I see. Any other questions anybody wants to pose?
Well, we're looking in chat. I'll go ahead and share that contact list that I had on the on the screen there. So just go ahead and share that, and I'll blow it up for you. There we go. And so this is the contact list. The only difference between this list and the one I posted in the chat is at the top of it is the zone contact information for Dave Schaefer. But he's on here already because he is currently the vision facilitation chair for our district. So these are the folks that you can go to reach out on visioning, club visioning, or strategic planning in each one of the different districts. If they're not the exact right contacts, they will get you to the right folks. I do have commitments on that. And then obviously, you can reach out to those of us that shared on the panel discussions and the panelists themselves and myself for District 5960. And I see there's one more chat in there. Thanks everyone, great information, ideas. All right, any closing comments from any of the panelists? I'm gonna stop that share right now. So my closing comment is on behalf of NC Pets, I'd like to thank the 5 panelists for taking time out of their schedule and to share their stories, share their experiences, reinforce. I don't know if you picked up on it, but there is a lot of passion behind visioning and a lot of passion behind strategic planning. And those of us that have done it and been through it get a lot of energy from it. And the clubs that have done it and have been through it get a lot of energy and passion. And we find it every 3 years, it's actually just a reinvigorating part of the process and really re-engages members and our membership. I know that's been our experience at White Bear Lake. So I want to say thank you to everybody. I think we're closing a little bit early today, but I'll give you back a few minutes of your time. Lloyd, I know you got to run, I think. So thank you to my panelists. It was great meeting you and well done. Good job.